went on a hiatus, and we're live on YouTube. Yeah, so I left the planning department for a while, went on hiatus to go to school, and I'm back, and I'm really excited to be back and to be working with you folks and looking forward to getting to know you guys better. So thank you for having me.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank
I
you.
agree. I'd like to thank Alexis for her work also. I've been very impressed with what she's offered to our group. Thank you, Alexis.
Thank you, Tom. It's very sweet.
Absolutely. Yeah, she will be missed. That is for certain. So yeah, I guess with all that being said, we can go ahead and get started. I'll start with the boring stuff, the script that we have in the beginning here, and then I'll pass it off to Brad to start the meeting. Because of the COVID-19 emergency and state federal guidance on large meetings or gatherings, and pursuant to the mayor's proclamation regarding COVID-19, Community Development Plan Action Committee meetings will be held online until further notice. Members of the public have the option to watch the CDP Action Committee meetings live on the Planning Department's Zoom channel or join the meeting via the Zoom link. Sorry, that should say YouTube channel. Join us on our YouTube channel. We appreciate your patience as we continue to navigate through this. We request that all participants on Zoom observe the following. One person speaks at a time. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand or use the raise hand function and wait for recognition from the chair before speaking. We ask you to please note that the Zoom chat function is not readily viewable by the public and may not be reflected in the official meeting minutes. Members of the public may use the chat function and their input is valued and will be noted by planning staff. However, members of the public are encouraged to sign up to provide public testimony or alternatively submit written testimony to ensure their comments can be incorporated into the discussion and minutes. Lastly, please silence your cell phones and other devices or distractions. And before I turn it over to Brad and Jeff, would anybody like me to walk them through the raise hand or chat feature? Okay, seeing none. All right, thank you.
Okay, do we have quorum? We do?
Yes, we do.
We do, okay. So I'm going to call the Hāmākua Community Development Plan Action Committee meeting to order, and it is now 5:06. I'm gonna start with roll call. Nikki Hubbard.
Here.
Carol Ignacio. No. Ton Keeney.
Here.
Crystal Kua.
Here.
Jeff McKnight.
Here.
Robert Nishimoto.
Here.
And Rhonda Pollard.
Here.
And I am present. Okay, the next order of business, additions to the agenda. Heather, Heather, go ahead on
Sure.
that.
Yeah, so we received no requests for additions to agenda prior to this meeting. However, we did receive a request from Corey Harden to testify on this item, the additions to the agenda item. So we're wondering, since this item is before public testimony, if it's okay to take her testimony out of order, Brad?
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Okay. Ms. Harden, are you here? Hi, Corey, we can see you. Can't hear you.
Tech challenge, sorry. Okay, so thank you all for your service on this committee. And speaking on the additions to the agenda item, I'm asking that you add to the agenda a discussion of the Hāmākua Institute, or at least invite the director, Dennis Fleming, to your next meeting to respond to the concerns I raised. I did speak with Mr. Fleming this morning. I'm now less concerned, but still have a few issues. It's interesting that when Ton asked about funding sources, Mr. Fleming did not mention Chevron or the New Nigeria Foundation. However, it does appear that neither of these funding sources has any interest in projects in Hawaii. It appears Mr. Fleming is accustomed to working within the constraints and expectations of corporate funded projects, and their priorities, of course, will be quite different from projects funded by government or community groups. He mentioned that in one country, a large corporation was starting a mine which would have severe impacts on local people. He decided there was no way to fight it and decided instead to work just to make the least worst impacts possible. And without knowing the specifics, it's hard to say if that was the best call. Mr. Fleming's projects have been all over the world, Nigeria, Guyana, and he mentioned he spent more time away from Hawaii than in Hawaii. I asked about Honua. He said he reached out to them, but they did not respond. I asked about biofuels, which can damage the environment depending how they're done. He said he's looked into it briefly, but it's not an area of expertise for him. And last, he said he was withdrawing his application to be on the action committee. So apparently, with questions raised, he decided not to go down that road. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Corey. Appreciate your, your consistent and, sort of watchdog throughout the years. And so appreciate that. I'm not going to, I did talk with Dennis as well yesterday, as I had kind of shared with some of you. And that since, Dennis's testimony, actually, it was basically a informative presentation, and we're really not engaging, in their services or his participation in, any current efforts. I'm going to, I'll invite him. I think we'll invite him to a future meeting to address that if he wishes to, and rather than take up more time on our current agenda. And so hopefully that's okay with folks. And then also, as I mentioned, it is not on the current agenda, and so we would like to provide sort of the requisite 7 days of thing. But we, like I said, I do appreciate the Corey's bringing that to our attention, and then also Dennis's willingness to I think he will be more than happy to respond to those concerns. Okay. Announcements. Keiko, not Keiko, but Heather.
Oh, got to unmute. Okay, I have 2 announcements to share. First one, planning our general plan update. The administration has been working to launch and implement the new Electronic Processing and Information Center, EPIC permit system. Now that EPIC is up and running, more time will shift to the priority of reviewing and evaluating the general plan comprehensive review. This will include an updated timeline, additional public input, and an outline of the adoption process. We will update our website when new information is available, so please sign up for our GP mailing list to be notified, and we'll share that with you folks. And also just wanted to add on to that, we've had this come up quite a couple times with other action committees, concerns that we're not going to share an update. I just wanted to add that you folks, action committees, and our connected community groups, you folks will be the first to know when we have a solid timeline and actionable general plan activities that are going on. And my second update I wanted to share was that the Community First Healthcare Assessment, Community First and its partners are surveying Hawaii Island's residents throughout the month of November to better understand what communities need to improve their health. The survey is part of Access to Care, a collaborative working group to transform healthcare on Hawaii Island. And we will also be sharing that link with you folks to participate with that survey.
Okay, the next item is public comment on agenda items. Written testimony was accepted via email or in person at the Hilo and Kona Planning Departments up to 2 days prior to our meeting. And members were also able to register to provide oral testimony on agenda items. And so I guess through my own discretion, comments may be made during the public comment portion of the agenda or just prior to the relevant business items. And I think since we don't really have any particular, like we don't have a whole bunch of, a whole lot of agenda items, I'll just sort of leave it to, if we do have comments or, chat responses or concerns during, I'll entertain that. Right now, we don't have any additional requests to provide public testimony. And so if people have requests, they can raise their hand or get on the chat. And I think Alexis and Heather are monitoring the site there. So, okay, so the next order of business is approval of the minutes, the meeting minutes. And so we'd like to consider the draft minutes for the September 15th meeting. And so I will need a motion to accept and second the meeting minutes or bring it up for discussion if there are any items that people have regarding the minutes.
Motion to approve.
What's that, Crystal?
So moved.
Oh, okay. Do we have a second?
Yeah, Brad,
Yes.
I have a question or two about the minutes.
Okay. Right now we have a motion, so Crystal, will you withdraw your motion and then I'll yeah. Okay, so Ton, go ahead.
Yes, let's see, in section A, where is that of, I think it's section 3, and the first part, let's see, I think this is actually in reference to the presentation that was given to us in regards to the development in Hāmākua, the housing development in Hāmākua. It states that, let's see, I have the agenda up instead of the minutes, but, it does state that there will be a subdivision. The subdivision being proposed is 10 lots. However, I distinctly remember the subdivision that was being proposed is 40 lots. And I think maybe that's just a typographic error.
Okay, I'm trying to scan that, Ton.
Yeah, it's in number 3.
It's the first
Yeah.
line of number 3.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So if we can, so Ton, I guess you're asking that it be clarified or changed to reflect the actual build out lot
Yes, I
count?
think we all remember it as 40 lots. Yes.
Okay. Okay, anything else? Ton?
Well, yes. I have a question, and maybe it's not a question that anyone can answer here. I was actually hoping that Heather would be here. But in, let's see, section, I'm reading, Mr. Meeker replied that I had asked if that particular housing development was going to go before the county council because it was being proposed as 50% affordable. And a lot of times the 50% affordable suggests that a particular section in the code is being used to circumvent certain zoning requirements. And so I had asked whether that was going to be going to before the county council because of that particular part of the code. And it says the minutes say Mr. Meeker replied that 201H was not applicable to this project because they are working within the existing zoning. Councilmember Kimball added that the project would still go through the PUD process and go before the Planning Commission. The project would also go before County Council for review because they are applying for a rezone. So I can't remember if they were applying for a change of zoning or if they are not applying for a change of zoning. The two sentences seem to be contradicting themselves.
Ton, if I may, I believe they are applying for a change of zone, but what they were trying to say is they're working with the zoning code and not within the housing section of which you would apply through that other application that you had asked about originally.
Yes.
So they would
applying for a change of zone. And of course, you probably don't know the details of what the zoning change that they're applying for, do you?
I would have to look back, but nothing has come through the planning department yet. So there's been no application yet. They were just bringing it out to you folks as the first community members to get your feedback and connect with the community.
And we
and Ton, just to help clarify, is that they're going to go through a PUD process according to the presentation, which allows for more flexibility, but then it does come under, sort of the, like the review, obviously, for planning, and it'll go before, it'll run the public process by going through the planning commission and then coming out of the planning department to the council.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, anything else, Don?
It actually would be a question that Heather would probably need to answer, so I'll defer that. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else for any comments or review concerns of the draft meeting minutes for September 15th? If not, I will entertain a motion and second to approve.
I move to approve the minutes with the changes suggested by Tom.
Okay. Okay, it's been motioned by Crystal to make the changes that Ton just indicated, and second by Jeff. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All of those opposed. So the motion has been moved to approve, and it's been moved in second to approve the September 15, 2020 Action Committee meeting minutes. Next order of business. Before we move into the next business items, we've received a request from the party who was going to present on agenda item 2, and we're going to move her up to agenda item number 1. She has a class to attend. So may I request a motion to reorder the agenda to accommodate that?
Make a motion to reorder the agenda.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned by Nikki and second by Ton to allow Khaleesi to move to agenda item number 1. And all in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, it's been approved. So we'll go ahead and we'll proceed with that. And so the first item of business is a presentation by on Hawaii Farm Trails. And it's by Khaleesi Mausio, founder and chief executive farmer of Hawaii Farm Trails. And she'll be presenting about their organization's mission to mindfully connect visitor consumers directly to producers. And they're headquartered on the Hāmākua coast. and they would like to explore ways to showcase the agricultural heritage of our district in a community-grounded way while piloting sustainable experiences around food security to share with the rest of the state. So with that, we'll welcome Khaleesi Maucio.
Aloha.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you for having me here today. Of course, the kids need me right when I go on live. Go get your phone. But I will just show you a quick presentation. I didn't have anything fully structured. Let me see, share screen. And then, can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I just wanted to put this up on your screen. These are QR codes to the mobile app. So if you use your phone's camera and shoot it to the left, you'll get the Apple Store to download the app. And then on the right is the Play Store for Androids. So that is there as a resource for you to go ahead and download the mobile app. But I will also just walk you through our platform and talk a little bit about Hawaii Farm Trails. So Hawaii Farm Trails is a social enterprise that is a platform that helps to connect the public to Hawaii's farms. And it does this in 3 different ways. It offers a directory of visitor experiences, a marketplace to shop farm products, and a food planting project. Myself and my sister, we are farmers here we have a farm in Pauka'a, and I live in Papaikou. And we got together, and when we started our farm, it's a breadfruit farm, we saw that there was a gap in information for visitors to find farms in one place to visit, right? So that inspired us to go ahead and get a USDA grant to start this project called Hawaii Farm Trails. I did the platform, and my sister did the agritourism baseline study for Hawaii County. I just want to check that you can still hear me because I'm outside and it's raining finally.
Yes,
Okay.
we can hear you.
Okay, great. And so we went ahead and did that. And so we spent about 3 years just connecting with farmers, first in Hawaii County and then statewide during the pandemic, when we got more funding from KS and HTA to expand the application statewide. So the experience side of the platform is showing a directory of farms and markets and events, but also has this farm trail, which is still what we're going to be working on next. I'm talking now, okay? So so what we were doing was we collected all this information statewide on the farms who have experiences. You go on this platform and then you can find them on a map like this. And then it shows, so it's interactive, shows a list of farms statewide that have experiences. And then you can zoom in, and then it narrows it down by, the area that you're zooming into. And then you can also filter it by island and all sorts of tags for the types of farms. So that's just one example. And then we have that for farmers markets and also for events that are ag related. So this is the part where we are moving forward to try and to try and do a pilot in Hāmākua. So I applied again and got another grant for the next 3 years from the same source, USDA, to look into trying to explore several things in the Hāmākua area, which is where we're headquartered, right? So this is what it looks like when you do go into the store to download it. So just recently, I made the move to take over Low Store. If you're all familiar with Low Store, it's on the scenic route in Naonomea Bay, and it closed down recently. And because we had completed this platform that ended up being statewide and is significant to our agricultural community, we wanted to scale and be able to hold products and sell farmers' products, and as well as hire employees and have interns. So the Low Store was perfect. It was also a way for us to put down Hawaii Farm Trails, our roots in our local community and in the Hāmākua coast. So obviously a region that's near and dear to our heart, and getting even more connected as we renovate the store and start connecting with our local community that way. So we got the grant from USDA, and part of what we proposed there is to conduct this Hāmākua pilot to figure out the feasibility of providing those farm trails, as I mentioned before, the experiences that takes into consideration community feedback, as well as develop a few of or address some of the challenges that we've discovered through the agritourism baseline study of Hawaii County. And then directly bring the consumers to the farmers and leveraging those agritourism dollars. So right now, the platform has been this passive listing, and now we want it to create points of purchase to help sustain our social enterprise, and as well as more actively bring the visitor to the farmer. So those are the two main goals that we have for this pilot that we hope to kick off next year. My sister also has a grant into HCA to develop more of this and work on it collectively with Hawaii Farm Trails. So that's my sister. She runs Resilient Pacific. She's a professor at UH Hilo, and she teaches sustainable tourism. And so just basically, the list of tasks that we plan to address in this coming year and the next 3 years is here on the left. So we want to conduct a feasibility study with assistance from Resilient Pacific Hāmākua Institute to facilitate that, into looking into the best ways to create farm trails throughout Hāmākua, and showcasing our farms as well as our agricultural history in the area. What we found from the baseline study was that despite agritourism being seen as this sustainable approach and an alternative approach to the conventional tourism model, we still saw that a lot of the farms that were engaging with tourism are farms that either have a lot of capacity already, or did not necessarily directly contribute to food security in terms of providing food, fresh food. So we want to look at how to engage. So in the end, it's not necessarily considered sustainable when marginalized communities and marginalized members like farmers, or Native Hawaiian populations or people of color are not benefiting. So we want to try and address this through a feasibility study and looking at ways to build farmer capacity by engaging with them, providing trainings and helping them understand how to become a legitimate agritourism operation, understand further their challenges, as well as coming up with more innovative ways to help them grow food while still being able to engage in tourism. So that is the overarching goal. And then within that, help to build a trail system that engages them and not just our traditional, coffee growers and cacao growers, right? So, which is where agritourism is skewing towards. We also want to try to incorporate our food tree planting project, which is really based on, all of our programs is meant to be available to our visitors and hit out different points of purchases. So the tree planting project is meant to be like a carbon offsetting way of giving back while sponsoring food trees. So these food trees, which we specialize in ulu, is going to go to a local farmer who grows it and puts the food back into our food system. So we want to also provide experiences around that and feed into this new Malama Ku'uhome initiative that the HTA has to provide visitors with positive experiences like tree planting that will help them understand and connect in a more meaningful level with Hawaii. Included in that, in our plans and in our grant, is some marketing funds to help to start promoting these trails and put them out there. And that's it. That's what I have. That's what we have in store. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Oh, Khaleesi, this is Brad. And well, I do want to commend you for your taking on pretty ambitious projects, besides obviously your own farming and your own enterprise, because I know just doing that is a challenge in its own right. And so to sort of, kind of embrace and pursue the larger goal of helping to advocate for different type of tourism, agritourism, and specifically, hopefully, more sustainable. It's lots of different definitions in terms of that. So in terms of my one question I had was the trails, because I know like people have been interested in public access, not necessarily to farms, but it has been to Hāmākua, to subsistence gathering and those types of things. But what is the vision for the trail systems? Is it a series of connected trails that connect farms to each other, so that there is sort of I don't know, either van tours or yeah. So what is that?
Sure, and I meant to go into that, I just forgot. So it can be, so that's what the part of the feasibility study is about, is figuring out what is that trail system, whether it's one type or several types. And so at the very minimum level, it could be a curated itinerary on a PDF that is downloadable, and you see that. And it's just a suggested itinerary experience for the day for somebody who, say, has a day on Hāmākua, and you could just start and you want to explore a certain type of farm or thematic or theme, right? Whether it's chocolate or, so if you want to go to Akaka Falls and it's waterfalls, then what's in the area in terms of farms that you can stop in. And then it could go from there to something a little bit more involved, where they they are also getting in return a discount to encourage them to go to this, but still at an itinerary level. And then it could go from there, to a driving tour, which
Right.
one style of, guiding people on a GPS, map-based application to go from one place to the next. And then from there, it could go to working with a tour company or working with tour companies to connect them to farms. And those tour companies will basically run the tours that go to these farms, and we help to connect them and provide suggestions and
Mhm.
bring the farms up to the level of what the tour company needs. And then at the very sort of high level of effort end, we have Hawaii Farm Trails offering that service by taking folks on in a van with the trees and providing a mixture of experiences within a day or half a day with various stops to farms, farmers markets, and significant landmarks or historical places.
Okay, great. Anybody else have any questions for Khaleesi?
I have
If
a
not-
question. Oh,
Go ahead, Crystal.
aloha, Khaleesi. Good to see you again.
Likewise.
It would seem that you would need a lot of buy-in from individual farms to make that farm trail connection. Do you have a plan on how you do that? I mean, how that outreach would go?
How to engage with the farmers on that?
Yeah, I mean, to get buy-in, right? Because in order for them to be part of this trail, there would need to be buy-in from the individual farmers.
Yes. Yes. Well, I'd like to say that that's what I've spent the last 3 years doing, is establishing these connections with farmers. And so they already know who I am, they trust my process, and they know that it's a social enterprise. But at the same time too, I also provide a marketing service that will help to promote them further. So yeah, so I'd like to say that I've already been working on that buy-in. And now we're taking it to the point of not just starting off and doing it, but having a process of collecting feedback and concerns and, suggestions to really shape that process, and not really kind of try to apply what we think should be done, but rather what the farmers want to see.
Quick question. Brad,
Yes.
I'd like to ask a question, actually more of a comment. Up on this end, the north end of Hāmākua, it's sad for me, and I imagine some of the others of you who was not aware that Lowe's store has kind of changed hands. So first of all, just let me express that sadness. They've been there a long time, and I was just wondering, what were the circumstances? Was it just not, could you explain why Lowe's store has gone out of business, if that's
Sure.
actually
Sorry, I'm just gonna turn on the light. Getting out of the rain here. The owners are just ready to retire, and their children don't want to take over the store. So yeah, it's common. And over time, I have established a relationship with them. Their daughter did marketing. I hired her to do some marketing for me. And then they were also on our mobile app, so as a farm stand. And it inspired me to do the whole selling of their products. It was a pivot during the pandemic. It all came from trying to promote farm stands and the selling of products. So anyway, they decided they would just close it and sell it. And And they've also sold their own home, and they're going to be moving to a different farm on the Hāmākua coast. They knew about my plans. I proposed it to them, and they also had cash buyers who were from the mainland, and they decided to go with me. They liked my idea and wanted to keep the place for community, and didn't really want to see folks coming in from the continent and doing their things.
No, thank you for stepping up to that. It'll be a great challenge. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, if not, thank you, Khaleesi, for sharing and for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you got to go to school now. So anyway, good luck. And then, definitely plug in. We can certainly, provide support. And then also we'll look to you in terms of, some of your expertise to, basically help implement, pieces of the puzzle, which is the Hāmākua Community Development Plan, which definitely embraces and celebrates, cultural and more sustainable tourism as well. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'm actually going off to, it's a cohort class with Travel to Change. So they're trying to help to support us in these sort of regenerative tourism practices.
Sure.
Do all of that. So mahalo, everybody. Nice seeing you, and have a good evening.
Yeah, aloha. Thank you. All righty. The second presentation that we have is by Hawaii Secure Foods. And Hawaii Secure Foods is a LLC, which will do a presentation on their plans to operate the grass-fed artisanal grass-fed dairy on the site formerly owned by Big Island Dairy in Ocala. And so they're hoping to produce high-quality products, including fluid milk, butter, yogurt, to support Hawaii's dairy needs and to provide additional food security and sustainability for the state. They also plan to grow feed for other local livestock producers and hopefully future Hawaiian dairy farms, because they're a rare breed. So in understanding the history, significant history of this land, the Hawaii Secure Foods would like to hear from all of us and engage with local stakeholders to ensure their current and future activities are in harmony and alignment with the surrounding community. So welcome. I don't know the name of, I think it's the Bucks, if I remember correctly. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm Chad Buck, my wife, Stephanie. What I'll do is, one of the things that we talked about before when we talked to Heather about joining this meeting is if someone was going to come into our neighborhood, we'd want to know a lot about them. We'd want to know what their history are, what they're like, what they've been involved with. And so the first part I'll present and share my screen. And it's basically who we are and what we've done in the community, what we do across the state, and what we've done in the last 20 years to give you some idea of what kind of operators we are in the state. The second half, the second 10 minutes will be Stephanie talking about the plans for Ocala and where we are right now, and to give you an idea. And then of course, the last 10 minutes, just any questions that you might have. I think it's important right out of the gate to say, when we stepped in, we literally felt, and Steph will cover this in a more meaningful way. We didn't have a plan that didn't involve the community. And so the first thing we did was we reached out to the stakeholders, particularly of Ocala Town, and Charlene's here tonight with us, but really trying to find our way forward and what makes sense, because that piece of special land was scarred, and the community was scarred, and there were things done that needed to heal and have time to heal. And so, Steph and I moving in recognize that the community has to come first in what we do there. We're both somewhat fortunate in that we have day jobs, and we're not coming to that piece of property to try to figure out how to make money. We're coming to that piece of property to try to figure out how to make sense for the community and be good neighbors. And also, because of the business we're in, we recognize daily just how absolutely dependent Hawaii is on outside food. And so we'd love to move towards replacing imports. So just kind of to preface everything that you're about to see, and apologizing in advance, it's a fairly large deck. And so I'm going to speak like a disclaimer after an advertisement, just to kind of motor through as many slides as we have. And so if I do need to slow down, please just raise a hand or holler and let me know. Can everybody see that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes.
Thank you. So we own Hawaii Food Service Alliance. We're the largest supplier of perishable foods in the state of Hawaii. We're also the largest employer of food distribution and logistic professionals in the state. We have about 530 dedicated staff members. About 300 of those are merchandisers and drivers, and the merchandisers that make up about 150, 160 never report to our facility. They actually work inside Costco, they work inside Foodland, they work inside Safeway, et cetera. We serve every grocer, retailer, club, and commissary on every island every day. These are company-owned operations on Oahu, Maui, Kauai, Hawaii Island, and in California. And I should state, our operations in California are strictly to load containers of food for Hawaii. So we have dedicated staff across the river from the Port of Long Beach, Port of LA, that do nothing but receive goods from across the mainland and load them in ocean containers and move those to us here in the islands. We operate 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, so our lights never turn off in our operations. We sail on every Young Brother sailing between the islands. And this is important, I think, if you take a look at how this would overlay on our involvement in ag. And during COVID, we started filling the role for the Hawaii Farm Bureau and moving farmers' crops from each island to Oahu and across the state as a service during that time when it was so important and the grocery stores were short of food and so on. And because we have facilities on all islands, that allows a farmer to grow on an island but serve the entire state through our cold chain platform. We ship out of all 4 ports off the West Coast into Hawaii, but more importantly, we also ship from Hawaii to the West Coast. And this is where our ag platform kind of steps in. Our biggest exports are the invasive access deer and Patagonia provisions, which is the food side of Patagonia stores where you go buy really expensive hiking clothes. We also ship biodynamic organic honey from from Molokai, and that also goes to Patagonia provisions. We're the state's largest handler of perishable products via air as well. All of Walmart's, Costco's, Sam's Club, Safeway, and Cisco's air freight that come into Hawaii come through HFA, and we move that across the state as well. That's actually what got us involved in import replacement when we saw what was coming in and wondering why on God's green earth are we not growing this here? Is there some way that we could take this product and replace it with local product, just because we had a unique line of sight into what was going on in the industry and where things were coming from. These are our facilities, or at least shots of our facilities. The top one is where I'm at right now tonight. These are 2 of our 5 buildings on YY Loop, just off of Lagoon, just outside of Honolulu International Airport, but Maui, Kauai, and the Big Island. And our Big Island operation is in Keau on the bypass. The Big Island's actually where HFA started, in a card table in a basement a long time ago. So a younger us. We're a transition facility for the Department of Agriculture, which means we don't wait at the airport. They actually train their staff over here as well because of our proximity to the airport. All of our facilities are third-party audited, so it's not someone or our customer taking our word for it that our facilities have all the data and record keeping and temperature controls and cleanliness and sanitation. We actually get audited by an independent agency every year across the state. Some of the brands that we provide across the state, one of the things that is probably important to show on this slide is you see Kirkland Signature, great value from Walmart, Lucerne from Safeway. Those are their private labels that they actually trust us with to handle and move and manage those from the mainland into their stores. Probably one of the more important things we do in Hawaii is we distribute on our platform for 39 local producers and move their products across the state between the islands and into the grocers, retailers, and clubs. An example of this would be Safeway stores. These are our sections in Safeway stores. What's unusual about us is nobody calls us and say we need a pallet of this or 10 cases of that. We actually determine by unit what goes into a store every day. And then we put it on the shelf, we rotate it, we build the displays. If it codes out, we buy it back. If it damages out, we buy it back. So we take the entire liability of the entire program for the store and manage that on our side of the equation. For Costco, we handle over 100 plus high velocity SKUs. Quite often that means milk and very high perishable items that are going to, code out in a week or two. And so we manage that for them. So we determine how much milk of each type go in, how many eggs, et cetera. This is a Costco set. This is actually Costco Maui, but all these are individual separate displays across. None of these are repeated here. That we do and we build. And so we have a small army in these stores and clubs, et cetera, that we manage for. For Foodland, we also, besides all the stuff that we sell them, we handle all their trucking from their commissary, which is in Waipahu here. We deliver to 70 locations here on Oahu every night. And then we fly out to the neighbor islands. So this is their fruit bowls, their sandwiches, their tofu salads, the different things that they make and supply their stores with internally. We're the logistics behind that, and we're the wheels underneath that. I mentioned before that we take responsibility from the farm or the manufacturer, whether they're in Arizona or they're in the Midwest or wherever they're at, take title to that product, handle the logistics across the mainland, across the ocean, and then across the state to the shelf, where we determine, again, what goes into those clubs every day. Why that has an impact on ag is what we're hoping to do, and Steph will be speaking to this more clearly, is managing that type of system and trying to work with the local farmers, et cetera, to manage crops that are coming in and the timelines that are coming in to get to the stores and the clubs and the retailers that we work with every day. And Steph will also jump on. We write our own software, we write our own web applications, our own logistics intelligence, our procurement analytics, et cetera. And so we do that in-house and wanting to bring what we have to bear to help move agriculture forward in this next venture of ours. So it's just some of the customers that we have and the services that we provide. So we're not just distribution. We do a variety of different things for our customers across the islands, with our goal of being a single source solution for Hawaii's grocers, clubs, retailers, and exporters. This chart is basically, this is the card table back in the very, the far left bottom side. This is the last 20 years of month over month over month over month growth. And this is partly, the reason we wanted to show this is moving this momentum and moving this, hopefully, our goal is to take some of those momentum to help other farmers, et cetera, move into ag and ag across Hawaii because of our dependent on imports. Who we are as owners and operators in the community. We hold a very strong belief that we're accountable to the communities that we serve in, that it's a privilege to serve in the communities that we serve in. And so that means if there's a problem in the community, it's also our problem. And as a business with several hundred employees, we need to be part of that solution. When it came to COVID, we were the first people to step up. This was the largest mass food distribution at Ala Moana was shut down. They allowed us to use the parking areas and the mile. This was the Saturday before Easter Sunday. And the chain of cars that tried to get into this food or came through here was over 2 miles long through Honolulu as they waited to get food and bread and milk and eggs and other staples. We brought potatoes in from Mahipono on Maui as well. Salvation Army and Department of Emergency Management gave us 80 volunteers. These are all our staff, but gave us an additional 80 volunteers to help move through that. This is some of the items, or excuse me, some of the operations we had on the Big Island as well, with food giveaways across the island. And we did this on all islands, by the way, but just Big Island specific. We are the lead distributor for the city and county of Honolulu, partly because they needed someone also to be able to work with the neighbor islands and bring food in from the neighbor islands, namely ground beef. And there was, when the mayor asked if we could supply local beef for everybody on Oahu and these food giveaways, which were 4,000 families at a time coming through Aloha Stadium, which you see here, what the mayor didn't know is Oahu doesn't have a whole lot of cattle and a whole lot of processing. And so that took place across the state, and we moved that. We also volunteered and put the logistics under the free pet food that was coming in from mainland donors. And so we consolidated that, and moved that through the islands to give away. When there was PPE having issues trying to come into Hawaii for the Department of Health and so on, our air freight side, that's Lieutenant Governor and some of our people in the Coast Guard, they were trying to fly stuff around on these tiny little planes, and we're using full cargo planes. And so it made it a whole lot easier for us to get involved and help move that across the state. This is our Kauai branch moving PPE, mostly N95 masks into the hospitals. This was in Wilcox Hospital. And this is when we barely knew anything about COVID and what was going on. And so nobody said anything. They came out with these thank yous. It was just a very touch and go time with everybody. Steph mentioned some of this stuff as far as what we do in our training. We actually have over 100 people in our servant leadership training. Steph heads that. But we go anything from engage and empower, from people that are coming out of programs and need help. We do dare to lead, emotional intelligence, strength finders, et cetera. Our whole goal with the number of people we have and the scope that we have across the state is trying to support people coming into our organization and growing and maturing and moving into a career and not just a job. And so when they take these classes, including the Toastmasters, which is will actually be tomorrow as well. When they do these, they're on paid company time, and there's probably not much more of a powerful thing to give to somebody is the ability to speak well in front of the public and express themselves and actually negotiate. And so that's one of the areas that gets a lot of excitement here at HFA. When the USDA, when the schools closed, Dexter Kushida and the U.S. and the school system for the state, DOE, reached out to us because there were about 8,000 children that were not going to have a meal, a square meal, if the schools closed, and many did throughout the rural areas. Out of the 8,000 kids that needed, so they needed shelf-stable products, shelf-stable protein, shelf-stable milk, et cetera. And so we brought all that stuff in at their request, donated the logistics from the West Coast to Hawaii, and then donated the logistics to get it to these places. And on the Big Island, we worked with Vibrant Hawaii. We also worked with Costco's Depot on the West Coast, because you couldn't feed 8,000 kids 7 days a week for 8 weeks straight on that short a notice without tapping some pretty big resources. And so we worked with them. Out of the 8,000 kids throughout the state, half were from the Big Island. And so it was a very meaningful time for us through the summer, and vibrant, and we got to meet a ton of really special people across the state. We're heavily involved in disaster preparedness. If you saw the documentary Climate for Change on Hawaii News Now, we were involved with that. We are also involved, we're the only locally owned private company working with the city and counties of every county, along with FEMA, HIEMA, and the state in working towards a real disaster preparedness plan, because there currently is no real plan on the books. So we're involved in that as well. Part of that is moving in and working towards pre-covery, pre-position, what we're calling pre-pods of food stored. This is freeze-dried food, about 130,000 meals per 40-foot container that are strategically placed. We're working now with one with Waianae Coast. Kualoa Ranch is on Oahu is looking to do this. But clearly this would make sense for every island as we work with the counties, et cetera. Our move into ag is to help reconnect Hawaii. And I say reconnect because Hawaii used to be completely sustainable. Dairy used to be 100% sustainable in Hawaii. And it's our priority is to provide our established platform and food safety systems and protocols to local agriculture and manufacturing programs. Our goal is to empower and enable local farms and food producers to reach the venues of size required to attain economies of scale. Our local ag in some ways, in some areas, was basically, how do I sell a rich tourist that's going to a very nice restaurant some really expensive product? Our view of local sustainability is being able to sell the single parent who's having trouble making ends meet and can buy fresh local product at a price that makes sense for their family. And with that in mind, we've kind of stepped into this with our food platform and then started investing across. Currently, we're the operator and run the business of Ni'ihau Provisions. That's the slaughter processing facility for the island of Ni'ihau and Kauai. We're bringing in lamb, beef, and eland. Eland is the largest species of antelope. And so we're harvesting those. That's an invasive species along with the lamb that's on Ni'ihau that we are harvesting, bringing across, and then starting to move that to market. This is our first, that's eland actually, where we had a chef come in and do that. And we're starting this program. Foodland has stepped up, and we'll be seeing Ni'ihau lamb across all foodlands across the state as we move this forward. And this is where I stop and my beautiful wife begins, and we'll go through and walk through the Hawaii Island piece. So I'll move to the next slide, and Steph, I'll follow your command.
Thank you,
As
Chad.
always.
Thank you, Chad, and thank you to the committee for having us here. I'm excited to tell you a little bit about what we've been doing since December of 2020. So in December, we found out that the Whiteside's attempt to sell the dairy intact as an industrial dairy was unsuccessful, and that they would be auctioning off all of the equipment of the dairy to try and bring back some of the money that they had lost. And we knew what had happened. We knew the story and how the town had suffered. And we felt that it was important that these assets stay in Hawaii. Chad, you can go to the next slide. When you look at the assets and you see how intricate this design is, it's important that it stay in place and that it be used for our food sustainability and used in our value-added processing, which we need so much. So we knew the first important conversation that we had to have was with the community and the town. And we reached out to Charlene and Gennard and met with them on a Sunday. And what started as a 1-hour conversation turned into a 5-hour history lesson and tour. And Charlene and Gennard took us around the dairy farm. They showed us the areas of concern. They showed us, their concern with the freestall and stalls. And then we went into town and we saw the gulches and the homes that were impacted. So we just Chad and I feel deeply that this history is important and that it's important for us to work together as we move through the different stages so that we consult with Charlene and Gennard and the community and know what the challenges were so we can address them successfully. Thanks, you can move forward. So these are some of the opportunities that we see. First, we are in partnership with some dairy experts. Kays, Cornell, and Milena Kea have partnered with us, and they have years of experience abroad, California, and in Hawaii, and specifically at this site with Island Dairy, back before it was with the Whitesides. We plan to have a small artisan dairy that is grass-fed. We are not interested in using the free stalls for confined animals. We are not interested in a large industrial dairy. We don't feel that this is the location for a large industrial dairy, just given the rainfall and the topography that has been proven. So the focus will be on value added. You can see some of the products that we hope to be able to move into. And these are the free stalls. There are two 80,000 square foot free stalls that we feel need to be repurposed and used for the benefit of Hawaii. Time will tell exactly how those will be used, but there's great potential there. These are some of the products that we hope to be able to produce. Recently, we had the opportunity, Parker Ranch, as you know, had the huge fire that impacted the infrastructure throughout their pastures. And they reached out to the Whitesides and the Department of Ag, and they reached out to Chad and I. And we thought there was great opportunity to be able to help a neighbor and also to provide pasture management for this area for the Ocala Dairy. And so the first phone call we made was to Charlene. They are embracing of supporting the community, supporting ag. And they did have concerns, which was nice because then we could address them and we knew what they were. So those concerns were addressed. And within a week, we have some happy beef cattle here. They died and went to heaven. So we also hope to work with Symbrosia. Symbrosia is doing some really innovative work in this space. They have natural feed solution that reduces methane and improves productivity and also health outcomes. So it's grown and sourced locally. This is an emerging technology and it's a way to showcase sustainable innovation. So we're super excited about working with them and giving that a try here on the Ocala site. We are also looking to partner with Hui O'Lako. So Pomai over there is working to provide a sustainable feed for farmers and ranchers. And he is pulling in invasive species from the Hawaiian homelands and the slopes of Mauna Kea and using that to create feed. So it's a win-win, and he's excited about being able to support the ranchers and farmers on Hawaii Island. We also have been having lots and lots of conversations, and we found that everybody has been very supportive and wants to see ag take off in this coordinated way. I mean, there were a lot of challenges with COVID, but one of the real benefits was that we all came together and we started talking and having a much more coordinated effort towards these challenges. So we are working with a lot of people and a few of them there and on the next slide as well. On the government space, thank you to Heather Kimball. She brought us here today so we could speak with you. And we're working with many different leaders in this space. We also have talked to the Center for Food Safety and Tebbit Law. Charlie Tebbit was the attorney who brought the suit. And Charlene had introduced us to them. And they too are excited about what could happen when there is a group that is working in connection with the community. So, and looking at coming here today, of course, we finished reading the Hāmākua CDP, and you know, you've got some great goals. We were excited about these goals we felt were just most aligned. The one I want to just touch on briefly is encourage the increase, objective 9, encourage the increase in diversity of employment and living options for residents. And this is something that we really want to do. So if you know people who have dairy experience, send them our way. We want to engage and reinvigorate the dairy industry on Hawaii Island. And then if we don't have specific expertise, what we'd like to do is have an apprenticeship program. So we'll bring local residents along and provide that training so that they're skilling up to a career. We really feel it's important to provide the joy and satisfaction from careers that challenge and empower us. So that's a big part of what we do. And looking towards the future, we would like to invite Charlene to say a few words. She is going to speak on the role of Kupale O'Okala.
Hi, thank you. My name is Charlene Nishida, and our family owns a home in O'Okala. In fact, it was a former dance hall that we ended up restoring and converting into a single family home. Very excited about that. I'm also a member of Kupale O'Okala, who is a nonprofit, and that was responsible for working with the Center for Food Safety and the Clean Water Act lawsuit against the Big Island Dairy because of the effluent discharges they had into our neighboring streams and gulches. I'm not sure if everyone's aware, but O'Okala sits at the base of, or right below the site where the Big Island Dairy formerly was at. And we have streams that run in gulches through the east and west side of the town, as well as the Alaialoa gulch that runs right through the town. So needless to say, whatever happens from above directly impacts us down below. And it's for these reasons that it's been very important for us as a nonprofit, but also as a community to work in partnership with whoever is going to be managing the site up above. We want to be a part of that community that has voice and has experience, and we want to work collaboratively so that the practices that occur on the site are ones that are sustainable not only to the organization but also to the community and the island at large. We're actually excited about working with the Bucks. They've been really great about right away involving us individually and as a community, and really listening in a way that had not happened before, and really familiarizing themselves with how critical it is that we work in collaboration and partnership. So we're really excited about they're in essence an answer to a prayer for us as a community, and we are showing our support to their efforts.
Thank you, Charlene.
Thank you, Charlene. We enjoyed working with you. Chad, turning it over to you.
So just any questions for what you've heard so far, what you've heard before that you may need an answer if we didn't cover it, but just, grateful to be here, grateful to have your input, and that there's an interest on your side as we kind of, Michelle Galimba during the BOA hearing probably described it best as we feel our way forward. We felt like we needed to step into this arena. We certainly knew the story of Ocala and wanted to, kind of carefully step forward in a very slow process as we engage the stakeholders. I should also state that this is 2,300 acres. This could never make any sense in being a sole dairy operation. That's about as insane as it gets to put a 2,300 acres of dairy cows above a town on a hillside at a grade that you're not supposed to plow, or it's illegal to plow or till. And so our hope is to move this to a place that those large 80,000 square foot, that used to hold thousands of head of cattle in a concentrated area can be repurposed for possibly packaging, cold storage, value-added processing, and all those things that make it necessary to take packaged vegetables and produce and other items into the communities and sell and compete against and replace the mainland items. But the only way that can happen is if other farms bring up dairy, so that K's Kays and his family also are in line and approved already to take over the Havi dairy that's on its last and dying breath over there. And so we're hoping that they can produce milk and bring it here for processing. But those other facilities is how do we kind of move forward when Donna Shapiro and the Ulu Co-op, can we put bands of ulu through there to help stop erosion from coming down? And just what do we do to just make sense as a community for this? And so anyways, without any further from me, if there's any questions that you folks have that I can answer, and I'm going to stop the screen share.
Do we have any questions from?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. How many head of cattle do you actually plan on keeping at this location?
The dairy cattle right now that we've worked on is to milk 200 head of cattle for that. And so that, to give you an idea, there was, and I think Charlene has a better number than me, but it was well over 2,000 that were up there, in a very concentrated way. And these weren't grass-fed animals. They were kept literally locked up, fed as much as you could possibly stuff them with, and then doing what cows do after you do that. And then so you had these concentrated toxic messes of manure that just turned into being a huge problem. So this is a boutique grass-fed, so they're not confined that way, coming in to milk twice a day. Is the plan that's presented.
And the plan is that most of the products that you're going to be producing will stay in the state of Hawaii, or are you going to be exporting a certain percentage of it?
That's a great question. On a 200 cattle operation, I mean, one of the benefits we have is we're in every grocer. So even if it's a boutique product, if it's a boutique product, we can move that all across the state. Along those lines, there are some, there's a group over here that has a CAFO, and their plan is to ship all their product to the east and back to California with a Hawaii premium while we get their waste. Mm-hmm. That's a problem. And so this is meant for local people. That said, there are some industries that we believe that will need to scale that export on a New Zealand style export that helps lower the cost for local because you have economies of scale. This isn't it, but sometimes export makes sense. But Hawaii's biggest problem is feeding our own people.
Agreed. And then my last question would be, you mentioned some of the concerns that the community had, and I think Charlene brought that up as well, and that you would be addressing those concerns. And I was wondering if you might be able to quickly review what those were and how they're being addressed.
And Charlene, feel free to and staff to add to this. When we met with Charlene, it was the first time they were invited to come up and be at the dairy and actually see what's going on. And that's pretty egregious, right? So who in their right mind would go into a state that's not their own and do this without communicating with the community, et cetera? So so I think one of the issues was there was no communication with the community, let alone having them be stakeholders and having a say and so on. The second and clearly biggest issue was looking at, and there were some reasons behind it, which are happy to share at some later time, that they were just trying to push out as much dairy as they could possibly push out, and having that much concentrated mess up there that didn't belong there, that was producing these issues. And so you start cutting corners, you start running out of control because you have too many cattle up there. You're in an environment that isn't anything like Idaho, and so you're literally on one of the wettest places on earth, on a slope that should never be tilled, with thousands of cattle. And so what could go wrong? And so there was this, it was a bit insane to think that somehow this wasn't brewing. There's also some reason to go, well, why wouldn't the DOA why wouldn't the state somehow get involved with this and go, would some expert go up there and just say, what the hell's going on? And so that was just probably, you couldn't pick a better recipe for a disaster than what was brewing on top of the hill. And so it's, I think it was unchecked. For sure, it was unchecked. The community wasn't involved or invited to be involved as well. And so, what we're doing here is, what does 200 cattle look like? I mean, we talked with Charlie Tebbett, with Center for Food Safety, with Charlene and Jannard. And by the way, that 5 hours in Ocala with Charlene and Jannard, that was like, it was almost like a tour of the greatest environmental disaster that Hawaii's known. And it was 5 hours of a tour, and they know every inch of the place because they had to walk through it. They had to record it. They had to sit there and do all that investigation for at least a year. And so it was just, how do we educate ourselves to not repeat the mess that was there before? And so we're, again, just kind of slowly feeling our way forward as we kind of move through here. So and if neither Steph or I are farmers. And so we do know how to run organizations. We do know how to communicate with communities. We do know we both have kids. Yeah, we have kids and grandkids. And so this isn't just about us. And the business we're in is like, Hawaii is getting worse and worse by the day on import dependence. And so how do we start moving forward? How do we collaborate as a community versus, single farmers or the biggest fear, I think, in my view, if I was in the community, is that a national or international company would go put up stakes there, take over all that infrastructure, and just move on and do whatever the hell they want and do whatever they need politically to try to get that done. And so we felt like we needed to step into this and do our best, faults and all, ignorance and all, to make a difference in the community as best we can. And that's why we're embracing these types of meetings, because we don't know what we don't know, but we do know it's a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? I've got one. You mentioned, and I think you sort of touched upon it in responding to Jeff's question, but you mentioned, it started this dichotomy and this tension between economies of scale, which is, it's primarily, part of the problem is the large industrial scale agriculture that we've, subsidized over the, decades since, and then trying to return back to a more sustainable or regenerative type of agriculture, as well as the whole gamut of the chain, getting it to market, which you guys obviously have tremendous experience at with your company. And so my question sort of is to that. I mean, how do you see not only the Ocala dairy experiment or venture, but in terms of actively trying to get like the diversified, smaller scale, sustainable agriculture that I think most of us that have participated in the community process desire, and then trying to work that into this larger, more efficient, system that requires the economy of scale.
Right, and that's and Brad, that's kind of a $1 million question that has stumped our state for probably 20 years. As when Big Ag left, and Big Ag, in my view, typically means big problems. Particularly anytime you look at it, even what's going on in beef prices and what's going on through COVID. So what I think our view forward, and this is across the state, and this is in every county, so it's not just Big Island specific. Our state has over 7,300 farmers. And you got to kind of scratch your head when you actually say that out loud, because you shouldn't be able to walk outside your house without tripping over a farmer if that's actually true. And so there's just a lot of really small farmers that are doing and having that regenerative and working on, trying to make a living, but not having that final piece to get to market or having the food safety that's required. What I think is beautiful about Hawaii is the HUI system. When we were, and COVID really kind of exposed this when we started working with the HUIs. The only way we could feed 8,000 kids was working with those food HUIs on the island. And it was such a beautiful thing because everybody stepped up in their communities. And so we were literally the arteries or the backbone that ran on and the food ran on. And then each community did their thing. What's interesting about what we do is when our trucks cross the islands every night and every day, they empty out at their store and they come back cold, FSMA compliant. And the hope is that we can pick up from mom and pop and the smaller farms and bring those, because none of those farms is able to pay for, $1 million packaging machine or a full-time food safety person or their own trucks to go to market and try to be at, 70 Foodland locations in the same day and that type of thing. And so our hope is that these HUI systems will allow us, and the smaller farms will allow us to pick up and start to consolidate for the farms and give them the efficiencies, and then, for K's, by the way, for the Hawaii dairy, we gave them the free stalls. We gave them the calf pens because they're not going to be in Ocala at that scale. And we're not competing with them. We want him to succeed because we'd actually like some of his milk, because we're not going to have enough milk with 200 cows. And so we'd like to make more ice cream and make more yogurts, et cetera. So it's taking that Hawaii HUI system, and that also gives some social equity, gives a variety of things that benefit everybody across the islands. Because once it gets to a value-added processing, we're working on one on paper right now for Whitmore with ADC and what that would look like. So it's how do you take the smaller farmers, work example here, and we do all the distribution for Parker Ranch's program to all Safeways, the Paniolo Cattle Company. Prior to this system that we put together, the slaughterhouse held everybody hostage. They wait till the cows are too big to fly them out. You'd have to sit there and just pray that they take your cattle, and then they buy it at the lowest price, try to sell it at the highest price, break cold chain across the state, because if you're not shipping full containers, you're breaking cold chain at YB for a variety of reasons. And then it just got a markup. And by the time a Hata or a Cisco got it, it got another $2 or $3 more before it went to a restaurant. And so it just made it cost prohibitive. With Parker, we have a toll at the slaughterhouse, meaning a cents per pound. They have a cents per pound with HFA. And then when we print the invoice for all the Safeway stores on every island, Safeway pays Parker. Parker sets the price with Safeway, not us, not the slaughterhouse. And so it gives this clean line of sight that allows the rancher to actually make some money. And hopefully that rancher making money will, be able to do some things and make improvements and so on. And so I think it's a variety of the HUI system and then some transparent accounting that'll allow that farmer to move now that the kind of nucleus of power and leverage and move that over to the producer more, because all we are is a service. And so how do we do that more? And that's why I think you could take 7,000 people pouring into this system and give them a way to get to market across the state. A really long answer, but that's a pretty complicated question.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And I guess, I'm very hopeful that, we continue the conversation and the, playing around with, looking for solutions on the ground type thing to kind of move ourselves towards that. So thank you very much for the presentation. Are there any other questions for the Bucks?
Yeah,
I do.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Bob.
Right. My name is Bob Nishimoto. I'm
born and raised on the Big Island on Ninole. I'm not an ag person, but I'm a coastal biologist person. I've been here all my life, but the Bucks, whenever you fly out of the Big Island, especially Hāmākua, take a look-see at those narrow boulder beach we have along our coast. You know, that's traditionally been our fishing grounds. And you have a beautiful picture of the stream in one of your presentations, but I really want to kind of ask you if you could bring that idea or that concept of Hāmākua, because that stream is a Hāmākua, and this really speaks about us as islanders. You know, this is not a continental-based system. It should be an island system. So I know when I attended those Ocala meetings, and I remember talking to Jannard, you know, he fishes. But unfortunately, a lot of agencies' responsibility ends at the top of the cliff because there's nothing really appealing to outsiders, especially those that fish along the coastline, which I did. I still do. It's a custom. It's what saved our behind during our days we strike during the sugar time. So I'd like to ask the cooks, you know, as a public service, maybe bring the theme of Hāmākua. You know, what you do on land also affects the ocean. So that kind of be nice on your part. And I would support that idea. And hopefully, you know, we can look forward, because I'm also interested in this whole idea of this symbrosia seaweed thing you mentioned about. Maybe someday you can bring that idea, because my colleagues are all phycologists at UH Manoa. So, you know, they talk a lot about algae and what it does for agriculture. So with time, maybe you can educate us. Thank you.
Yeah. And we're getting educated together on this. So it's Alexis over there, and we're really looking forward to the R&D on that side, and appreciate your comments on Hāmākua.
Brad, quick question or comment. First of all, I'm Honokaw, so everything that I've heard up here in Honokaw about your operation has just been excellent. So you're certainly doing the right thing, I think. You know, first of all, what is the name of your foreman over here? Do we have a contact?
Carlos.
And you don't by any chance have a phone number for him? No?
Steph, you have it on your phone? Or you want to just write us and we'll connect?
Yeah, I'll put my email in the chat, and then you can send me a note.
Very good.
Yeah.
You know, I promised one of our dedicated hikers that I would mention that going the other direction, instead of going down to the shoreline, going up, your ranch is your dairy is the access point for the Humu'ulu Trail, which is the trail up to Keanakolu, which is just a marvelous trail. And the hiker just wanted me to mention that access through your dairy should stay open. I'm sure you would want to do that. And the other thing is that, gosh, yeah, all of us who saw Climate for Change, what a dramatic program that you were involved with there. And gosh, I would feel like, we should try to encourage you to come back every year to let us know how it's going on the project of making our island safe from disaster and truly sustainable.
So I answered two pieces. That gate has to be open, and that road goes all the way up to the forest line, and making that, I can tell you, having taken an ATV up there, I felt like we were taking our life in our hands on that road. It's so busted up. And I was told today in talking with a former ag person that there's $200,000 that is earmarked for that road to be fixed some. I don't know if $200,000 is going to fix that road, but it's, or at least all of it. But our hope is to actually have the community up there. We've got, especially with all the rain and so on, we got all these big coverings to have barbecues and actually have a sense of community up there and invite the hunters and invite the hikers. But you'll have our address there. The last piece on a climate for change, after that hit, we were invited to be involved in, HAIMA and Department of Emergency Management and Civil Defense and the planning. And so we've been doing monthly meetings on that. And I'll say so far, I think there's some change coming, but I'm even more pessimistic than I was when that movie was filmed, based on what I've learned in the last 6-7 months. But they are making some progress, and I do believe that they'll start to it may take. I'm glad we're coming on the tail end of the hurricane season, but I certainly, and this is partly what kind of moved us into the sustainable food area as well. But thank you, Ton.
Sure, thank you.
Okay. Do we have any more? Anybody else?
Yeah, I do, Fred. Aloha. I'm Crystal Kua. I live in Pepe'ekeo. And I realized that I'm actually going to disclose that my daughter works at HFA as a buyer, my daughter Kanani. But my question, one of the things that she's really proud about working for that company is, and you mentioned some of it in your presentation, is the community mindedness of the company. I mean, she was involved in a couple of those Aloha, I think 1 or 2 of the Aloha Stadium
right.
Runs of food runs, but can you go into a little bit, and because this group is very community minded, and we want to make sure that each of our communities are that they're taken care of by everyone, and you did mention part of that, but where does that come from for you, and how are you going to translate that long term going forward? And then my other question is a little bit different, but maybe you can also talk about the processing. How are you going to process your value added products? Is it going to be the same time as you do the dairy? Is it going to be a major, are you bringing in a lot of equipment, or I'm just curious how that's going to run?
So the first, well, I'll start with the processing. So for 200 cattle, it doesn't take a whole lot of equipment. In fact, our problem right now is we've got equipment that's loaded for bear that equipment will literally rinse out the clean and place system our entire day's production. And so, which was lovely. We bought all this equipment, and then we go, we're going to put a boutique. And so, well, the boutique will rinse out your production. And so we're actually working on, how do we get a small boutique pasteurization and the pots that you use for yogurt production. Ice cream's pretty easy to go small and get bigger, but it was literally, you have the beauty about what's there though is just the room itself with the enclosed lights and the epoxied floors, and everything's cold, and so it's held the chills at about 34 degrees. The production areas is in the 40s. And so you have the ability, and all the international food safety guidelines, FSMA compliant guidelines are already there. And so when you get into that the building, there's too much building there, way too much building there. And so it's like starting with boutique, it's taking more than several steps backwards, and then starting that boutique, and then how does that work? And so we, on the bottle, we probably do some juices to make some sense out of that bottling equipment. So that's there's not big equipment coming in. There's too much big equipment there. And we're actually working on, if the parlor that was having thousands of cattle go through, if the parlor can be broken up and sent somewhere else, and maybe to, Havi's got really antiquated stuff. And so maybe that'll work somewhere else. The other question regarding why we're doing the community stuff, or what inspired that?
Yeah, where does that, not everybody, I can name a couple of different projects along the coast, didn't do it that way, right? So, you know, why is that important and where does that come from? It has to come from somewhere. So I'm just wondering where that.
There was an article that if you Google Hawaii Food Service Alliance and there was 5 questions on food distributions, and at the end of that article, we literally started on a card table in a basement, and a whole lot of prayer and a whole lot of sleepless nights, and I came to Hawaii as a teenager on a one-way ticket, never been here, didn't know anybody, but just trying to get the hell away from where I was. Immediately, then I was a teenage father, and there wasn't food banks and there wasn't safety nets, and working 3 jobs and trying to make things make sense for my kids. And Steph and I have been married 20 some years now, and our anniversary Saturday. And when we have 2 more kids, but when I look particularly at, you know, the need and the food insecure, something's dramatically wrong with the state of Hawaii. I'm pointing towards Kaka'ako, and when a food insecure child can walk a block or 2 away from their apartment, their low-income apartment, to multi-million-dollar condos that are lived in twice a year, and we can't feed them. And when we were doing the food distributions over the summer, some of the locations we were distributing to were the side of the street in the rain because our state couldn't put up the proper shelters to feed children. And so I lived through that. And I was scared to death whether I could eat. And then when I was a teenage father, whether I could feed my kids. And so I think God puts you in a place that makes an impact on you for the long run. And I'm grateful for that time, because all the stuff that we're talking about now and doing right now wouldn't exist if I didn't walk that really broken road. So that's where it comes from.
Okay. Anybody else? Just in the interest of time, it's about 6:46, and I'd like to sort of respect everybody's time commitment. And so, yeah, unless you have something really brief, like to move on. Is that okay with everyone?
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you again, Chad and Stephanie.
Aloha. Thank you for having us.
Aloha.
Thank you, Charlene.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thanks, Charlene.
Okay, so our next order of business is the Heather to sort of any kind of updates on implementation from the various action committee members on the various issues that we had been working on in the last couple sessions.
Yeah, thank you, Brad, and just let me mahalo to Stephanie and Chad if they're still on for making the time to come by today and speak with you folks. I can just say that from my experience with them, they've been very transparent, and I really appreciate the outreach that has come from them. The one meeting that we had just recently, I did meet with Ton and Jeff, and then also Deborah Chang, who sits on the PONC Public Open Space Commission, to talk a little bit about the trails. So we're at a point now where we're going to reach out to Kamehameha Schools about utilizing what it might take to get permission to utilize some of their properties as part of the trail network. And I was really excited to hear about the Farm Trails project, because I'm thinking that there's definitely opportunity for intersection there. And so that's, I don't know if Jeff or Ton want to weigh in on that about our conversation. Is there anything you want to add?
I just kind of technical. I had a conversation with I suppose the focus of our conversation was in regards to the area around Pahau and trying to open up the Lower Cane Hall Road as much as is practical. There are real practical issues. The owner of the property that the old Pahau Mill was on had yesterday, through her real estate agent, said that she would be, happy to discuss selling that to the Ponk Commission. I visited with the president of the Pahau Community Association. He would be very much behind having access down to that area, except that he would not want the Pahau Road to be used for that access. And in a lot of ways, that's understandable. I understand that at least. And so I think, there's several other possibilities as far as access down to the Pahau landing and the old mill site. So Heather, I'd very much look forward to talking to you about those various options.
Great. And then I've also tentatively scheduled a meeting with Jackson Bauer from DLNR to look at some of the maps that they have that are existing trails that they have jurisdiction over. So we're going to start our mapping process to try to figure out the little bits and pieces that we can open up to public access and try to sew those together along the coast. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot of additional updates other than as far as emergency preparedness. Of course, Francine has put her booklet together, which again, I encourage everybody to share out. And then Hawaii Wildfire had their first meeting to develop or to promote Firewise communities in Hāmākua. If you weren't able to attend those sessions last week, let me know. And if you're interested in contributing to that process, I will make sure that you have the information to do so. And then if there's anything else folks have questions about, happy to, at the county level, happy to respond to those now.
Anyone?
I do have a question. All of the concern, I guess, that was raised in regards to the presentation last week from the Hāmākua Institute. I think, along with most of us, it would be good to perhaps hear from Dennis in 2 months or whenever we're having that meeting. But I also want to put that in perspective to something that I heard. I was at the farmers market in Honokaa over the weekend and sat down next to a gentleman. He began talking about a property that was up for sale. It was next to the, it was the same property that was going to be sold for a housing development right below Honokaa, between Honokaa and Haina. But it's now, he said, it was in kind of final stages of sale for a gentleman who intends to do biofuels. And so that raised my curiosity. What does that mean? Someone doing doing agriculture for substrate or feedstock for biofuels. It seems to me like biofuels would demand, or it's not the kind of a thing you take to the farmer's market, and try to sell. I'm visualizing that a agricultural effort involving biofuel with an end of producing biofuel would demand a great deal of infrastructure and thousands of acres. And so I was just, I was curious, Heather, I'm wondering, have you had any discussion with Hāmākua Institute about biofuels?
No, I haven't. And this is the first time I'm hearing about that particular project. So I'd have to know a lot more to answer any more questions about it. So yeah, no, I haven't had any discussion with Hāmākua Institute about biofuels, and I don't recall any of their presentations talking about that either.
I don't either, no.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. If we don't have, I'd like to kind of keep moving on. We're at 5 minutes more till 7. Anything else on any of the other issues? Emergency preparedness, hazard mitigation, affordable housing, public access and trails, recycling and solid waste, roadway.
Just mention on affordable housing.
Go ahead.
Rhonda and I did talk story, and we did ask if we can get a presentation regarding affordable housing for us in the near future. So when there are people from those departments available, hopefully we can agendize that and all learn more. Because after our last meeting where the presentation from the developers occurred, I was approached and questioned, and some of it was from misunderstanding of our purpose, but there was concerns as far as how we are, what piece we are in the process of things like that being approved. And so I just wanted to make sure that when we do have speakers, I like how Brad had said today, it was just a presentation for informative purposes regarding the Hāmākua Institute, but maybe we also need to say that regarding anybody before they speak, so that anyone who watches online or after the fact is understanding that we're not currently making any decisions. At the moment, we're doing a lot of learning about what's going on in the community and on how those things meet some of the action items in the action plan. I just wanted to share that. We're hoping to learn more about affordable housing.
Mahalo, Nikki. We do have a affordable housing presentation in slate for the January joint AC meeting. So I will, I've written down your input that you wanted to share. You wanted to kind of like shape that conversation a little bit more. And if any of you guys have any additional input, suggestions, maybe questions ahead of time, please feel free to contact us, and we can also get that, shaped up ahead of time in communication with them. So thank you. Let me know.
In regards to, thanks, Nikki and Heather. In regards to the roadway network, at the last meeting, I sort of briefly mentioned that I had reached out to John Cross, and he mentioned that there were, he was aware of quite a bit of information on the old plantation roads. And so I kind of see it as an island-wide thing in terms of the planning department sort of pursuing that so that we can get that data, in our system, so that we can actually evaluate, some of these roadway networks, be it the roads in limbo or some of the government roads in particular that are on private property. And so that, I guess I'm proposing that, working with the planning department to kind of spearhead obtaining some of that information And I know that John is open to, at least for Hāmākua, he knows where that information is, as well as Ka'u. But for the rest of the island, there might have to be a little bit more investigation. So I wanted to put that out there, and then we can continue that dialogue so that we can actually get what we need to sort of identify. Because I know that in our Hakalau area, we've had ongoing discussions that Heather is aware of in terms of alternate access, for resilience and emergency preparedness, hazard mitigation, and just wise to sort of continue our efforts along those lines. Let's see. The last, does anyone else have anything else on those other issues or kind of implementation subcommittees? If not, let's move to the last item. Hopefully we can wrap it up. We're right now. We're almost at 7 o'clock. So I'll turn that over to Heather on the reviewing the current action committee member terms and ideas about the 2022 action committee proceedings.
Thank you, Brad. And thank you guys for hanging in there. I know this has been a bit of a marathon of a meeting. So I am a fresh face to most of you guys. And I'm really excited to be working with you going into the future. We mentioned earlier in the meeting some staffing changes that are happening. Part of that also is we're very interested. I'm super chipper and excited to be looking into next year and looking into how we can connect with you folks better and kind of reorganize our efforts to be able to provide you more meaningful support and help find approaches and ways that we can shape the action committee program in ways to better support you. Part of this conversation and part of what we've been talking about, and this is pertinent in large part to other action committees on the island who have a lot of, in their membership, a lot of their members have become what we call holdovers. So a holdover is when a committee member's term expires, and that makes that committee member eligible to be be replaced by a new appointment. And so this has been a conversation that we've kind of started to approach with the other action committees, is to say, offer up one-on-one meetings with committee members to provide a safe space for us to just talk and just check in about how folks are feeling being on the committee. I wanted to share with you folks, just got a message that Heather Kimball's having some connection issues and she's logging off. Sorry, Heather, thank you for being here. We need to come up with aliases, I think. Every time I hear the word Heather, I go, oh, me? I'm just sharing my screen now. This is, are you folks seeing a PDF file here with the fact sheet? Okay. So this is the current fact sheet for the Hāmākua Action Committee, and just showing this to show that what folks' terms are, and that we do have some holdovers that are coming up. Unfortunately, Brad and Jeff and Carol expire at the end of this year. So it's something to think about. And I want to preface a little bit of this conversation too. We have holdovers that decide to stay on for years or that choose to hang in there for years. So nobody is trying to say that just because you're a holdover, you can't, continue to serve and continue to be part of the committee. All that we're trying to do in this discussion is bring up the conversation of to understand how you're feeling and ensure that you're not hanging on longer than you feel you need to or want to. We certainly don't want anybody to feel burnt out or overburdened. On the flip side of that, we also want to give people a full opportunity to engage in the way that they would like to engage. And there's different formats for that too. We are also, as part of our efforts in shaping up for next year, trying to create better networking relationships with community members and with different community groups. So if that is something you're interested in and maybe serving in a different capacity and maintaining this relationship with us and with the planning department, we're open to that. And I guess generally, just to acknowledge that people have a plethora of reasons why they may want to step away from the committee, doing things with whatever is happening in their personal lives, and just wanted to express from our side that we're fully aware and that we honor your time and your commitment, the compassion that you have for your community, the time that you've put into being an action committee member. We don't want anybody to feel bad for stepping down if that's what they feel like doing. And so we do want to provide a safe space for that. And if you're interested in continuing to serve as a holdover, you're welcome to do that for as long as we are able to accommodate that. We can't guarantee that you can serve forever as a holdover, because there are things that are outside of our control in the planning department. And that's that if we get an applicant in through the mayor's office that gets appointed up and through, that's outside of our control. However, we can say that if you wanted to stay on for longer, on our part, we're not going to be pushing for recruitments. If you are interested in being replaced, we'll push for you and look for that replacement, or you can help assist us in finding that replacement and keeping the action committee running. One thing that's really important to us is the idea of keeping the mana'o from people that have been on the committee in the past connected. This is, as the Hāmākua CDP is a newer CDP, this is more pertinent to other action committees that were founded, 10 plus years ago, where we have folks that were involved with the creation of the CDP, continuing to serve on their committees and bring that history forward. And we would like to see the same thing happen with the Hāmākua CDP. So that's all I wanted to share. I kind of wanted to get the gears turning on this conversation, not only in the capacity of thinking about your role in the action committee, but also the structure of action committees more generally. We're open to suggestions if you have ideas on how we can better support you in ways that we can better implement the CDPs moving forward. This could be something as small as, for example, this meeting has been kind of long. Should we start writing our agendas so that we have an intermission in the middle? And so everybody gets an opportunity to kind of stretch their legs and come back and sit down. Little suggestions like that, larger suggestions, doesn't matter. And I just wanted to open up that floor and just let you guys know that we are going to be following up with a invitation for one-on-one meetings. So, it'll be 2-on-1, I guess, because Keiko and myself and you, and we would like to just open up that space. So if anybody wants to talk, communicate with us, we're willing, and we're looking forward to next year.
Heather?
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
I received an email today from the county, the County of Hawaii Boards and Commissions. And the heading is, the County of Hawaii Boards and Commissions seeks applicants to fill the following vacancies. And it has Board of Appeals, Board of Ethics, the Status of Women, Cultural Resources Commission, Fire Commission, et cetera, et cetera. I think there must be probably 15 commissions listed here. But the community development plans are not listed on this. And I know that some of the community development plan action committees are, in fact, don't even have enough for quorum, I believe. What's going on here? Why are you not requesting applicants for those positions?
It's absolutely not that we're not requesting applicants for those positions, just maybe that we are just in a place right now of transition and trying to figure out the best way within our capacity to support you guys you're right, we do need to be recruiting applicants for both the Ka'u CDP and the North Kohala CDP currently does not have a quorum of action committee members. So those are also things on the list to do for next year. And it's not that we're discounting that. Certainly in our efforts in this conversation of talking about holdovers with the Hāmākua CDP and the CDPs that are currently seated and have quorums, we're going to be prioritizing the action committees that do not have quorum first. So what we're talking about is not necessarily what's happening today or tomorrow, but into the future and next year. And I guess this is also kind of a space for me to talk to you guys pretty realistically about where we're at as far as capacity, and trying, and part of this conversation is not to say that it's not about the level of support that we are willing personally to provide to you folks. It's what are we able to do? How can we stretch the capacity that we do have to the fullest extent and do our best to support you given the resources that we have? And how can we kind of restructure and rethink of the way that we are doing things in ways that might create more efficiencies so that we're able to support you better. Yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
I think it answers the question in the sense that you're saying that you have plenty of applicants for these positions, but you just don't want to fill them.
Ton, if I can add to this.
Sure.
These communications are likely coming from the mayor's office for recruitment, and the CDPs have been listed before, in particularly the ones that need to make quorum, Puna, Ka'u, and North Kohala, I believe. Mm-hmm. So they have gone out before in listings, and they're probably also looking for all these other boards and commissions to fill positions too. So that could just be a communication style coming from the mayor's office of how they're recruiting and reaching out at times.
Do we have enough applicants to fill all of the positions?
For the other CDPs?
Yes.
That I'm not sure. The most up-to-date list will be with the mayor's office.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Anything else that anybody wanted to share in this space? Okay, thank you guys.
Okay, the next and hopefully last item is the agenda for next meeting. There was one item that I noticed on the last meeting, and that was at the last meeting or the previous one, there was the planning director I had asked a request on information on the additional farm dwellings, and I haven't, and you guys were going to get back to us on that. And so since we don't have, unless you have something, it would be great to put that back on the agenda, because it does have some significant Hāmākua and the island in terms of affordable housing and agricultural housing and housing in general. And so that had, if people don't recall, it had to do with a memo, a new memo that the planning director has come up with in terms of what is allowable for additional farm dwellings. And so if we could get some information on that, and in particular, I'm curious as to the number of lots that are affected, I think it was 1976 or something like that. So if we can get the numbers to see how many lots basically have a free reign of saying, hey, I'd like another farm dwelling, and it will be approved based on the notice. I'm curious to hear what that impact is for Hāmākua district.
And just to clarify, Brad, are you looking to put this on the agenda specifically, or would a clarification through email be okay?
I think, we had it on our agenda, in the draft minutes. And so we haven't gotten anything at this meeting. It was on the draft meeting minutes. So I guess what I'm proposing is that we have that put on the agenda for the next meeting,
Okay,
along with whatever information, so that we can discuss it. And and does anybody else has suggestions for any additional agenda items that you have in mind right now? And then if not, obviously sending it to Heather and Keiko prior to the next meeting, and then we can agendize it. If not, I will entertain a motion and second to adjourn our meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, it's been a motion by Jeff and second by Zeton to adjourn our meeting. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, I guess we're adjourned. It is now 7:14. So we'll adjourn our meeting, and our next meeting is going to be on February 15, 2022. There is on that meeting schedule a January 19 joint AC meeting. And so mark your calendars. It was on the schedule that was sent out to all of us. Okay, again, thank you everyone for your time and efforts, and we shall see you in the next